From the ground, crafting that CBL is no simple. It is an act of political authorship. It is defining who we are as an organization, what we stand for, and what we are willing to sustain for ourselves along the way. And while founding an organization is already difficult, sustaining is far more challenging. Because sustainability demands two. Number one is funding, and two, leaders. Without funding, our programs are limited. Without leaders, our purpose is collapsed. These two, which is resources and people, determine whether our organization merely survives or meaningfully thrives in this university. Yet these two are precisely where university-based organizations struggle to secure. And yet, despite these challenges, we remain the first and to stand the front lines when our communities are in need. Every time a typhoon strikes in Bicol region, every time disaster hits our provinces, who are the first volunteers mobilizing relief operations, conducting donation drives, and checking the conditions of our community? These are the university-based organization. We have always been there, not because we are required, but because we care. That is why I stand here today to assert this. University-based organizations are not non-negotiable sectors of Bicol University. We are not accessories, we are not secondary, and we are essential pillars of this student life, civic engagement, and community response. And because of that, we deserve not only recognition, we deserve respect, the support, and the accountability from our leaders and institutions. Noting that many of our leaders in the highest governing bodies, including the University Student Council and various college student council, have themselves come from the organization that they have once proudly represented. One would think that they understand deeply the struggles that every university-based organization faces. They were once in our shoes. They know the sleepless night and drafting projects and endless search of funds to pressure the mobilizing people and sustaining an organization with limited resources. They know this because they lived it. And yet, despite this lived experience, despite this intimate understanding of how difficult it is to run an organization, why is that they cannot initiate even the bare minimum forms of support of UBOs that we deserve? Why is it that the simplest act of institutional assistance, logistic aid, clear communication channels, inclusive consultations, and equitable opportunities remain out of reach? Why is it that those who once struggled with us now forget the very struggles that shaped them? This is not an accusation, it is a call for conscience. A reminder that leadership is not about transcending one's past, it is about remembering its leaders who once relied on the strength of these respective organizations. We ask not for luxury or privilege. We ask only for what is rational, fair, and long overdue. A system where UBOs are supported, empowered, and treated with respect they rightfully deserve. Our case is simple, ladies and gentlemen. Give UBOs a prioritization we deserve, not as a favor, not as charity, but as rightful acknowledgement of our contribution to the university and to the communities we serve. Prioritization in policies, prioritization in budget, prioritization in opportunities, and prioritization in governance. Allow me to anchor this call to the collaborative governance theory of Ansel and Gash, the very framework of our thesis that stands that it is simple, that yet profound. Governance becomes effective when stakeholders share both burdens and the benefits. When we include the decision making, when we open doors for the information, when mutual trust is built, cooperation thrives. But when system coerce, exclude, and undervalue us, there can be no genuine commitment on this end. This is the reality we must confront. University-based organizations are the civil society organization of our status quo. We operate like CSO, we mobilize like CSO, we live and serve like CSO. yet we do not receive the institutional benefits that real CSO receive from their local government units. When civil society organization registers or accredit in the LGU, they gain recognition and access of funding, opportunities to implement programs and channel their meaningful participation. They have transactional relationship that empower them. So, the question, Honorable Assembly, is this, if LGUs can do it, why can't Bicol University and the University Student Council do the same? Why can't our system institutionalize and create mechanism that uplifts UBOs instead of limiting them? Why can't we institutionalize finding support, capability training, logistic resources, and collaborative platforms that recognizes the true value of our organization? As the minority leader, I stand here not to oppose the sake of the opposition, but to challenge the sake of progress. We demand privilege, we demand fairness, we demand institutional respect, and we demand our contributions to be valued not just in words, but in policy implementation and budget allocation. This assembly holds power, a real power, to shape how this university listens to, works with, to empower its organization. And today I ask we choose transformation. I ask that we build a system where university-based organizations do not merely survive, they flourish, where leaders are nurtured, where initiatives are sustained, where services reach communities consistently and effectively. We stand on the stakeholders and shoulders of those who built this assembly before us. Let us honor them by expanding what they began. Let us build a governance culture that is collaborative, equitable, and just. On that sees minority oppositions as not threats, but as unnecessary checks and catalysts for innovation. In closing, ladies and gentlemen, I speak today not to elevate myself, but to elevate the organization I represent, the university-based organizations. We are here, we are active, we are indispensable. And in this time, long overdue, for this university to acknowledge the very truth, give university-based organization the prioritization that they deserve. And we will continue to give as well the Bicol University the service, the leadership, and the integrity that they deserves in return. With all those reasons, I am very proud to present the minority. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Minority Floor Leader. Next, we have the committee heads, starting with the Academic Affairs Committee Head, Joseph Verano Jr.
Hello. Honorable members of this General Legislative Council, fellow student leaders, the entire Bicol University community watching with us today, good day. Nervous to be speaking in front of you now with my two legs shaking. I stand here not just as the committee head of the Academic Affairs Committee, but as a fellow student who shares the same classrooms, who shares the same late-night deadlines, the same pressures, and the same hopes that push every Bicol University student to move forward. As stated in the implementing rules and regulations of the General Legislative Council, the Academic Affairs Committee is mandated to take charge of the academic queries, recommend resolutions, and coordinate with institutions to uphold the academic welfare of the students. But today, I speak not just from what the IRR requires us to do. I speak from what our students truly need. For years, much of the work of the academic affairs has been viewed as something technical. Policy interpretation, coordination with the administrators, and administrative lobbying. But this year, we aim to bring the heart of our mandate back to where it must begin, to our students. In the viewpoint of someone who is a would-be educator, students are at the core of our service. Walang mga paratukdo kung walang mga mag-aaral. Bringing the spirit of my college to the entire Bicol University, I strongly believe that a policy means nothing if it does not protect the people it is written for. Reform means nothing if the students do not feel and experience them. This is why, for this year, and the academic year rather, the Academic Affairs Committee is shifting its lens towards the grassroots, towards the shared stories, the frustrations, the academic challenges, and the silent battles our students fight every single day. Now, without further ado, allow me to present our 3 major initiatives for this term. First, we have the revisiting and strengthening of the students' academic rights. The AAC will have an extensive review of the BU Student Handbook. Based on the BU Student Handbook, we will reintroduce and clarify the academic rights of every BU student must know and must feel empowered to assert. To bring this closer to the community, we will launch a university-wide Know Your Academics Information Tribe named AHA or AHA. It stands for Academic Help and Awareness, featuring frequently asked questions, trivia, simplified guides, and myth-busting academic reminders through the GLC page and the USC website if permitted. This begins on the first Wednesday of December and will run every Wednesday, and it will last until the last Wednesday of January. We will adopt a Gen Z-friendly approach in having our information tribe. We will also make our information more catchy and entertaining to the eyes of the students. Make it not just informative, but rather more of like creative. This way, students will know what their rights are. And because rather, most of the time, the problem is not the absence of rights, but rather it is the absence of awareness that you have the right. And we are here, the Academic Affairs Committee this year is here to change that. Next, we have the research on students' lived academic experiences all across the different colleges and different campuses. Beginning the second week of December until the month of March, the committee will conduct a university-wide research focusing on the lived and shared experiences of the students from all campuses and colleges. This is more than just a data collection. This is simply listening. This is acknowledging. This is putting into record what students have been enduring in silence, from workload concerns to grading transparency, to accessibility of professors, to mental load, or even academic burnout, and more. If we want to craft the resolutions that truly matter, we must first understand the stories behind the statistics. Third, I present a resolution for the translation of the University Student Council Constitution and bylaws into the language of Filipino. Lastly, we will be crafting a resolution to translate the revised USC Constitution and bylaw. For years, many students have felt distant from our governing documents, not because they do not care, but because the language used is rather technical, legalistic, and often intimidating to the eyes. When the language is too complex, the politics that are supposed to empower end up excluding the very people it is meant to protect. As a language major student myself, I deem translating this document into Filipino not merely as a linguistic change, but more on act as democratization. It is ensuring that every student, regardless of college, background, or academic track, can clearly understand their rights, their responsibilities, and the system that represents them. To guarantee both accuracy and cultural sensitivity, the Academic Affairs Committee plans to partner with organizations with expertise in the Filipino language and literature, such as we have the UBO Samahan ng mga Mag-aaral sa Filipino, a college-based organization, the College of Education, Samahan ng mga Guro sa Filipino, and many other organizations. Furthermore, we will have the translated document reviewed and validated by the BU-based Filipino major professors, especially from the College of Education, the College of Arts and Letters, and other colleges that house experts in linguistic and Filipino studies. This collaborative approach ensures that the translation is not only correct, but also faithful, accessible, and empowering. We intend to present this resolution in the first session of the second semester because we believe, ladies and gentlemen, members of this assembly, that democracy is not truly democratic if only a few can understand the rules that shape it. Lastly, I would like to incorporate in my speech what our university president have presented earlier. The university president opened the matter and the concerns about the disruptions in classes, which are, we know, very evident. It really exists. It really happens. So, originally, what I have presented to you, the three major initiatives of our committee is what we have planned. But allow me to accentuate on the importance as well of giving emphasis on the significance of what our university presented. I, as the committee of the, I, as the representative of the Academic Affairs Committee, fully acknowledge the concerns that was raised. And so, we assure you that we will have a role in ensuring and having an extensive discussion and review on the nature and holistic implementation of the learning continuity plan that was presented. This way we can contribute to the continuation of ensuring that there is still learning amidst the series of suspensions that will happen in the future. Kaya naman, to the students watching the live stream, this year, the Academic Affairs Committee commits itself to a simple principle: to restore your voice where it matters most in the academic spaces that shape your future. We are not here to speak on behalf of the students. We are here to speak with the students. And more importantly, to ensure that administrations hears all of us, not as isolated concerns, but as one united, informed, and empowered student body. Let this term be remembered as the year when academic affairs became more than technical works, when it became an advocacy, when it became a service, and when it became a bridge between the students' struggles and institutional action. As I end this speech, allow me to speak from where my strength comes from. I come from the province of Masbate, a land of people who embody the spirit of maisog kag madunong, bold and wise, courageous enough to stand for what is right, and thoughtful enough to choose the right battles. This is what, as the committee head, will bring to the table. This is the fire I carry to every policy we will review, every student we will listen to, every initiative we will launch, and every resolution we will fight for. Spirit rather guide all of us to be bold in pushing for the true academic justice and wise in building solutions that uplift every BU student. Because after all, in Bicol University, no student should ever feel invisible in their own academic journey. Damo-damo po na salamat, and may we continue staging meaningful changes together. Thank you.
Thank you so much to our Academic Affairs Committee Head. Proceeding, we have the Research, Education, and Publication Committee Head, Ms. Claire Boras.
Hello.
To the honorable member of the General Legislative Council, a blessed morning. As a student leader molded by College of Education, I believe that leadership must be rooted in service, strengthened by research, and communication that empowers. And today, I rise in a matter of personal and collective privilege as the newly elected committee head for Research, Education, and Publication Committee. To be honest, when I first saw that our committee is only composed of 2 members, I paused. Yes, 2 members, including me, and one from BU Polangi campus, Mr. Jason Ortega. For a moment, I felt the weight and the wonder of this committee. Wonder because the number was small. Heavy, I felt the weight because the mandate was not. The mandate entrusted to us is crucial and wide. But one thing I learned about leadership is that it's never about the number or the size of the team. It is about the intention and the courage to begin. Now, we envision the Research, Education, and Publication Committee as the knowledge engine of the Council, a body that ensures our decisions are informed, our students educated, and our policies visible and accessible. A committee that does not just publish, but builds understanding, not just researches, but grounds our work in reality and empathy. For our first step, as approved through Resolution Number 10, Series of 2024, and its implementing rules and regulations, our committee now advances the activation of the Special Quick Response Committee, or the SQRC, established as a unified DRRM mechanism for the whole university. But before we even reach this moment, we have already begun, quietly but meaningfully. During Typhoon Uwan, we were able to utilize the early form of the centralized database, an effort made possible through the guidance and work of the good authors from BU IDEA CSE, led by President Christine Carmel de Mesa. That small step, that first attempt at organizing accountability lists and communication chains became our blueprint. It was not perfect, but it was real. It was used and it helped us. It proved that we are capable of the system we are about to build. Moving forward, our plan for the SQRC includes series of informational postings, a digestible educational posting that explains the system to the students. What is it, why it matters, and how it protects the student body. Because what is the use of this framework if hindi naman siya alam ng mga students, di ba? Next, of course, we will conduct the first ever election for SQRC officer, which will fill the following position. 1 chairperson, a duly elected officer of the USC, internal vice chairperson, a duly member of a CSE, external vice chairperson, a duly elected member of the special sector organizations such as RCYC and more, internal secretary, external secretary, budget officer, disbursing officer, auditor, campus representative across all BU campuses, volunteer corps leads, composed of trained student center for DRRM activities, such as student nurses, medical students, and Red Cross Youth Council members. This is the leadership that will carry our disaster preparedness forward. Through this first step, we affirm that research is not merely academic. It is preventive, responsive, and deeply rooted in service. As we strengthen safety, we must also strengthen truth. So for our second plan, we turn our attention to those who carry the responsibility of storytelling in our university. It is our student journalists. Often, we see their outputs, their newsletters, articles, the publications, but we do not see their exhaustion. We do not see their struggles, and we do not hear their needs. Coming from the College of Education, I was taught that listening is the first act of leadership. So this initiative begins there. We listen, with listening. Our committee will conduct the Campus Press Situation Review, a simple but meaningful pulse check research on the realities faced by student publication across Bicol University. This initiative will not be complicated. It will be grounded in listening. Through a short survey and focus group discussions, we will learn the challenges, or what are the challenges they face in sustaining their publication, what supports do they lack, how do they navigate funding, administrative protocols, and editorial independence, and how can this council support them in becoming stronger, safer, and more empowered storytellers. At the end of this, we will also produce a Campus Press situation report, a concise, transparent, and grounded in the voices of the journalists themselves. Because when we empower student journalists, we empower the entire student body, and we protect the truth. Sometimes, sabi nga nila, the most important step we can take as the council is to simply ask, kamusta ka? And truly mean it. Fellow student leaders, the works before us are heavy, but it is meaningful. We carry the responsibility of shaping understanding, safeguarding safety, and amplifying voices. Through the activation of the SQRC and the Campus Press Review report, we hope to build a committee that listens, that responds, and that uplifts. A committee that does not merely exist, but one that serves with clarity. I am reminded once more that our committee may be few in number, but our commitment is far greater than our size. What began as just 2 members is now an invitation. An invitation for collaboration, for shared purpose, and for collective strength. In the months ahead, I am hopeful that together with the entire General Legislative Council and the student leaders we work with, we will transform this small team into a powerful force for research, education, and truthful communication. Maraming salamat at pagpalain nawa ang lahat.
Thank you so much to our Research, Education, and Publication Committee Head. Next, we have the Socio-Cultural Committee Head, Ms. John Marie Alimoin.
To the honorable members of the House, respected officers, UBO presidents, CSC presidents, and dear CSC representatives, good day. I rise today on a matter of collective importance, one that goes beyond programs, events, or committee mandates. I stand before you speak about identity, our identity as Filipinos. As BUeños, and as an active participant in shaping a society that honors its past, understands its presence, and aspires for a better future. As we move forward, let me share my vision as the committee head of the Socio-Cultural Committee. I am entrusted with the duties and responsibilities that are more than just conducting cultural activities. Our vision arises from the belief that the culture is the power to educate, to unite, and to transform. Kami po ay dedikado na ipamalas at pagayamanin pa ang ating kultura sa bawat proyekto na aming gagawin, sa bawat pagpapamalas hanggang sa paglinang ng kamalayan. Dala-dala po namin ang karangalan at kwento ng bawat BUeño. We aim to highlight the richness of our indigenous communities, protect the heritage of our traditions, and honor the creativity that shapes our archipelago. Sa ganitong paraan, mahuhubog natin ang bagong henerasyon ng BUeño na hindi lamang nagpapahalaga sa kanilang kultura, kundi ginagamit ito bilang matibay na pundasyon para sa tunay na progreso. We also aim to enhance the BUeño's cultural awareness and social responsibility, because culture is not just something to be appreciated. It is something to believe. Our committee is dedicated to creating programs that spark empathy and understanding spaces where students can confront social realities, hear narratives beyond their own, and recognize the role they play in building a more compassionate society. It is our duty to turn cultural familiarity into informed citizenship, and informed citizenship into meaningful action. Third, we are committed to strengthening our collaboration because culture grows best whenever we work together. We will serve as the bridge between the councils and the students with different cultures and beliefs. By working hand in hand, we ensure that the projects we undertake reflect not only the vision of the committee, but the spirit of the entire student body. We are working in a time when division often weakens the cultural understanding, when convenience causes people to forget their heritage, and when social responsibility is sometimes seen as optional. But these challenges make our mission even more important and urgent. Today, I ask for your continued support, cooperation, and shared commitment. Let us use our platform to promote respect, strengthen awareness, and inspire pride in our identity as BUenos and as a Filipinos. Let us support initiatives that educate, uplift, and empower. Lagi po natin pagkakatandaan na ang ating kultura ay gagawin nating direksyon. Ang ating kasaysayan ay magiging gabay at ang bawat BUenyo ay ang puso ng ating bawat desisyon. Sa tulong nito, makakabuo tayo ng pamantasan na binibigyang halaga ang kanilang kasaysayan. May we always remember that our culture is our compass, our history is our guide, and our people and our Filipinos is the heart of every decision we make. Maraming salamat, and may we continue to lead with purpose, empathy, and pride. Thank you.
Thank you so much, our Socio-Cultural Committee Head. For the last committee, we have the Student Rights and Welfare Committee Head, Mix Joffrey Nicolas Opeña.
Ayan. Okay pa ba ang lahat? Medyo intense na tayo, ano? Pero chill-chill lang tayo dito, guys. And this will be a very light speech. Medyo chill lang. Let's have this a fresh breather para sa ating lahat, ano? So, ayan. Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, into the members of this chamber. I am Joffrey Nicolas Opeña, the head of the Student Rights and Welfare Committee. We stand here today to say that our committee is not just a mere decoration, not an ornament to make the GLC shine, not a symbol placed for glamour or prestige. We are here because we carry a purpose. We are here because there is a work to be done. And we will do it at this very term with the help of our officers. Three things: visibility and reachability, policies closer to the students, and active voice of students' rights and welfare. Members of these chambers, we are not gods, intimidating, and we are not untouched. We are meant to go down, to be the one who serves, for that's what we owe to the students who made us to this very position. Isn't it? We are not meant to stay quietly in the background, present but not felt, mandated but not seen. We are not gods. We are meant to be reachable, easy, and present when it is needed. Once again, isn't it? Response, isn't it? Ayan. Sige. Istro, we believe that we have a noble purpose, student rights and welfare. But a noble purpose does not mean anything if no one knows that you exist, if you are not felt. With this, we will harness the power of social media, not for vanity, not for display, but for service. Every student in this university deserves to know that we exist in intention, that we are here to safeguard rights, to champion welfare, and to stand with every learner who feels unheard, because that is our purpose. Visibility is not self-service. It is accountability. It is our responsibility to show up, to speak up, and make our difference meaningful to everyone, because we owe it to the students. Secondly, bringing laws and policies closer to the students. Policies are powerful only when people understand them. Rights matter only when students can access them. But the question is simple. What if they don't? What's our policy for? For paper? For glamour? For fame? We take pride in being the only university in Bicol with anti-red tagging policy. I talked with Ateneo de Naga University. They're currently crafting right now, but I offer them help. If ever they need, I will help them. But the point is, we have the opportunity, the only university in Bicol to have this policy. What is the worth of a noble policy if no one knows how it protects them? What is the value of safeguard if the very people it intends to shield cannot recognize or use it? This is why we will roll out a simplified and accessible information drives, clear, digestible, student-friendly, for knowledge must not intimidate, it must empower. In January 2026, we will officially launch the Strong Voice series, a bold start to 2026. It is not just a campaign, it is a commitment to elevate student awareness, break silence, and reclaim the space where rights are discussed, defended, and demanded. Make every student know that they are protected, unafraid to freely think. We will not also limit this on ours. We will help other state universities to establish their own foundation of this civility. For again, we are a university for humanity. Cura personalis. Let's care for others. We will also help actualize straw-related programs for every CSE, not in theory, not in paper, but in practice. The resolution for conducive learning, environmental cleanliness, and extension for humanity. With the support of our majority floor leader, Clean Clemacosa, the IVC, Justin David Reynoso, and to our CSR, Kyle Ruben Bron. To the USC officers and to the whole member of this chamber, resolutions will surely translate into action. And to ensure sustainability, we will introduce a streamlined concern mechanism. Thank you so much. Special mention to the College of Arts and Letters, College of Nursing, and to the College of Business Economics and Management, and to other colleges who will be very willing to make this framework accessible to everyone. We will make this as a foundation of every colleges, not just for Cal, not just for CN, not just for SEBEM, but for every college. And this is an assurance coming from my words. No. Not just for the benefits of this term, but a legacy that we will live once we are not in the very position we have today. Be an active voice of student rights and welfare. Our duty does not end at the gates of university. Rights do not pause once we step outside. We are a university for humanity, not a privilege, not for convenience, but for people. And so we will speak when speaking is necessary. We will release statements where silence becomes injustice. We will embody the voice that refuses to be ignored, just like what happened in CSSP. We will be very vocal about it. I assure you that. Because our voice is not our own. It belongs to every student who seeks fairness, safety, dignity, and respect. Beyond everything, may we not forget what we are doing this for. Why you are here in this very room. And why you have your very position. Why you are the president of CSCs. Why you are the representative of your CSCs. You have to fulfill that obligation, your purpose. Wow, naging motivational speaker. Okay, proceeding. For your purpose is what keeps you alive, and may we hold unto that. Members of this chambers, no more promises, no more empty words. From this point forward, we will let our actions speak for us. We will let our work define us. We were not here for glamour. We are here for purpose. And our purpose will lead everything we do. Thank you so much, and there's a lot more things to be done. And we will make sure that we will deliver. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much to our straw committee head. Next, we have the Constitutional Convention President, Ms. Dexter Gulimlim.
To our Chief Legislative Officer, University Student Council President, USC officers, College Student Council Presidents, and college representatives and proxies, university-based organizations and publications, good morning. You may be asking, why is someone who once strongly criticized the Constitutional Convention resolution now presiding over the very process he previously opposed? I assure you, this is a question I have likewise posed to myself. Nonetheless, when the call of duty is made, we are compelled to respond. Responsibility requires that we rise to the moment and commit ourselves to the work before us. At this juncture, allow me to extend my sincere gratitude to the members of the Constitutional Convention for academic year 2025 to 2026, and to our dedicated presiding officer, Justin Dave Reynoso, whose steady guidance and timely reminders have kept this body on course. I also wish to formally acknowledge the officers of the Constitutional Convention. Vice President Ira Madrideo from the College of Arts and Letters, Secretary General T.J. Vasquez Genova from the Jess M. Robredo Institute of Governance and Development, Deputy Secretary General Mark Orly Dote from the College of Social Sciences and Philosophy, Parliamentary Procedure Officer Russell Advincula from the College of Social Sciences and Philosophy, and Sergeant-at-Arms Rob Lester A. Valladolid from the College of Industrial Technology. Your commitment of time, energy, and expertise is indispensable to the fulfillment of our mandate, which is to revise and propose amendments to the Constitution and bylaws of the University Student Council. As your CONCON President, however reluctant I may have been at the outset, and on behalf of the entire set of the CONCON officers, I reaffirm our commitment to deliver meaningful and tangible results. Our objective is clear: to produce an updated constitution and bylaws that genuinely address the needs of the students of today. The current CBL has long outlived its relevance. We require a new one that reflects a USC firmly grounded in service to its constituents, and one that we can collectively take pride in. In this regard, I respectfully request the cooperation of this august body. Your participation and active engagement are vital to the success of this noble undertaking. For your information, the CONCON officers are currently in the process of revising the standard internal procedures to ensure a more efficient and expedited system for proposing, discussing and deliberating amendments. As a president, I do not intend to micromanage the committees. Rather, I intend to empower them to take all necessary steps so that prior to the 2026 elections, we may present amendments ready for the consideration of the student body. To the previous CONCON officers and committee members, please be assured that your hard work will not be rendered futile. The executive report of the CONCON of AY 2024 to 2025 will be incorporated into our ongoing efforts. Finally, I wish to emphasize that the revision and amendment of the USC Constitution and bylaws cannot be achieved without your full cooperation and active participation. I earnestly appeal for your inputs, your recommendation, and even your constructive criticisms. Indeed, robust critique is an essential element of a healthy and functioning democracy. Thank you, and may we all have a productive and meaningful day.
Thank you to our Constitutional Convention President. Lastly, we have the privileged speech from the Chairperson and Student Regent of the Bicol University Student Council, Ms. Kyle Ruben Braun.
Hello. Good morning, honorable members of this august General Legislative Council, my esteemed colleagues in the University Student Council, the presidents of the college student councils, the duly elected representatives of our academic units, the presidents of recognized university-based organizations, the editors-in-chief of our student publications, Mr. Presiding Officer, distinguished members of this council. Today, I rise on a matter of personal and collective privilege. Our nation stands at a crossroads. The Philippines at present is beset by layers of crisis that test not only our institutions, but the very moral fiber of our democracy. Instability has crept into every corner of our public life. Those who swore to serve the people now appear consumed by political maneuvering. Families are broken apart in the name of power. Alliances are forged not for public welfare, but for political convenience. Instead of governance anchored on vision, we witness governance driven by political survival. Disasters, natural and man-made, continue to devastate our communities. Earthquakes shake our foundations, typhoons uproot livelihoods, and floods swallow the dreams of ordinary families. Yet despite these recurring tragedies, the government continues to fall short of what is demanded by the Constitution, the promotion of general welfare, the protection of life, and the delivery of essential public services. Most recently, Super Typhoon Uwan once again exposed these systematic failures. Our own region, our own university was not spared. In Albay and other provinces, the highest storm signals were raised. Homes were washed away. Children were orphaned. Lives, each one irreplaceable, were lost to a tragedy worsened not by nature alone, but by the persistent failures of governance. We know the truth. The funds meant to mitigate disasters and rebuild communities are repeatedly siphoned off by corruption. The poor continue to suffer, not because resilience is inherent to them, but because injustice has been allowed to persist. Political choices, whether in the form of misgovernance, incompetence, or corruption, can cost lives. Political choices kill. Yet amid the wreckage, I witnessed something deeply powerful: the organized unity of the youth. Student councils, volunteers, and campus-based organizations mobilized with urgency, not for praise, not for recognition, but out of compassion and duty. The University Student Council, together with the college student councils and other organizations and volunteers, mounted relief operations even as many of our own members were also victims of the typhoon. Students gave their time, their strength, their limited resources, and in many cases, the very food they themselves needed. Let us be honest. Our fiscal space is small. We do not have millions in our treasury. We do not have the machinery of government, yet our determination has always outweighed our limitations. And this is something I will always be proud of as a student leader, that even when we have little, we give what we can. Even when the world expects nothing from us, we choose to act. And I hope that this fire, this stubborn, radical hope, continues burning within us long after we leave these halls and take our place in society as professionals, thinkers, and change makers. But let me emphasize one critical realization. Resilience has been a mask for failure. We have romanticized survival so much that it has become a convenient alibi to hide systematic neglect. After every typhoon, we proclaim the Filipino spirit is resilient, but fail to ask why the same communities remain vulnerable, why evacuation centers are inadequate, why warning systems fail, or why corruption remains entrenched. Resilience should never replace accountability. Our environment is political. Disaster response is political. Budget allocation is political. The safety of our families is political. And as citizens, more importantly as student leaders, we cannot remain silent. We must demand accountability, transparency, and justice in the use of public funds. We must question policies that betray the poor. We must reject narratives that tell us to accept suffering as normal. At the same time, we must also recognize our own role in shaping a safer, more sustainable future. Environmental stewardship cannot be left solely to agencies or authorities. It begins with us. How we consume, how we act, how we educate our communities. Climate change is not a distant concept. It is here, it is real, and it aggravates the very disasters we witness each year. And so I stand before this council with a simple reminder. Let us focus on the substantive, not the superficial. Let us devote our efforts to matters that uplift the people we represent rather than indulging in petty political dramas that do nothing to advance the cause of the studentry and of the nation. In these rooms are presidents of university-based organizations, college student councils, and editors-in-chief of our student publications. Collectively, we hold influence. Collectively, we shape narratives. Collectively, we spark movements. We are not leaders for events and programs. We are leaders for justice, for truth, for collective welfare. The Student Council is a mandate. Throughout our history, student councils and student movements have always stood at the front lines of nation-shaping struggles. It was students who marched during the first quarter storm of 1970 igniting nationwide conversations on inequality and rampant political abuse. It was student councils across universities that formed the backbone of resistance during the martial law era, documenting abuses when mainstream media was silenced and mobilizing communities when dissent was criminalized. It was students who helped restore democracy in 1986, students who fought for press freedom in 2001, and students who organized information campaigns and community kitchens during the pandemic when government systems collapsed under pressure. These legacies remind us that student councils have historically been catalysts of accountability, guardians of democratic values, and defenders of human rights. And in this pursuit of justice, truth, and responsive governance, we too inherit that responsibility to continue what earlier generations of student leaders began and to ensure that our campuses remain sanctuaries of free thought, organized dissent, and meaningful public service. As we move forward, may we remember we are the voice of students who cannot enter these halls. We are the hope of communities left in the dark. We are the future leaders of a country desperate for principled leadership. Let us not allow complacency to dull our purpose. Let us not allow fear to shrink our vision. Let us rise to the challenge of our times. For if student leaders like us do not demand change, who will? If we do not act with conscience, who will? If we do not stand for the people, then what future are we building? May our leadership always show the courage our nation needs. Thank you.
Thank you so much to our chairperson and student regent. Those are all of the key persons that have spoken for the privileged speeches. May your privileged speeches be a moment of shared accountability and collective vision. With that, this particular item in the order of business is deemed accomplished. For our next item in the order of business, we will now be presenting the new business. To reiterate, our new business is as follows, Madam Secretary.
Resolution number 7, series of 2025, a resolution providing tents for all accredited university-based organization of Bicol University for every academic year.
Thank you for that. Calling on to the proponent of the resolution for its first reading, Mix Luisito Gonzalez Jr., please approach the podium.
Hello. Good morning, everyone. So here is the first resolution for today. I think this is the last. Okay, the resolution is introduced by me, but it was a collective agenda for all the university-based organization, as you can see. So a resolution providing thanks to all for all accredited university-based organization or UBOs of Bicol University for every academic year. Whereas the whereas clauses, as summarized, it was all just the reasons out to why we actually demand for a providing tents for all university-based organization. Whereas Article 7, Section D of the Bicol University Student Handbook defines university-based organization as any group composed of at least 15 bona fide students of university that were organized for a common purpose and applies for accreditation as new student organization. Whereas university-based organization undergo an annual reaccreditation processes, completing all documentary requirements and complying with university policies to be fully authorized to implement their programs, projects, and activities within the academic year. This specific whereas clauses, which is the second one, is the accreditation process and reaccreditation process that every university-based organization undergo for every academic year. Apologies if super bilis ng pagkakabasa, but whereas Bicol University recognizes accredited student organization as dispensable partners in the holistic formation of student body, fostering leadership, academic excellence, social responsibility, civic engagement, and community participation in alignment with the university mission and vision. This specific whereas clause, as you can see, there are different categories of university-based organization, from provincial to academic, civic, community, etc., and so on. So, yeah. The fourth whereas clause is that UBOs maintain their operations primarily through the internal membership fees, which vary depending on organizational mandates and programs, thereby sustaining their internal and external activities for the academic year. This specific whereas clause was actually every university-based organization has their internal funding or membership fee. Other UBOs do not have any membership fee at all because of the mandate of their mother organization. For example, the Bicol University Integrity Crusaders Office of the Ombudsman, which is I am the former chairperson.
Author, please be reminded that the first reading allows for you to read the text only as presented.
Okay,
please proceed.
Mr. Chair, I'm very sorry. I would like to dispense the reading of the first of the resolution and proceed with the deliberation and discussion for the second reading.
The motion is to dispense the reading proper for the first reading. There is a motion to dispense the reading proper of the resolution on its first reading. Let's proceed. Is there any second? Motion has been seconded. Let's proceed to voting. Those who are in favor of dispensing the reading proper of resolution number 7, series of 2025 in its first reading, please say aye. Those against the motion, please say nay. The ayes have it. The motion to dispense the reading proper of resolution number 7, series of 2025 in its first reading is carried. Proponent.
Okay, I would like to adopt the resolution for its and proceed with the second reading of this resolution.
That motion is not recognized by the chair. Please observe proper parliamentary procedures.
I'm very sorry, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, can I be recognized?
Yes, you are recognized.
I have a motion to adopt the resolution for its second reading, for the first reading, for its discussion and deliberation.
Thank you. There is a motion to adopt GLC Resolution number 7, series of 2025, entitled A Resolution Providing Tents for All Accredited UBOs of Bicol University for every academic year in its first reading. Do I hear any second? Motion has been seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, let's proceed to voting. Those who are in favor of the motion to adopt this resolution on its first reading, please raise your hand. Thank you. Please lower your hands. Those who are against the motion, please raise your hand. Madam Secretary, please report the number of votes.
Mr. Chair, we have garnered 60 from the affirmative votes and 0 from the negative votes.
With 60 affirmative votes, the motion to adopt this resolution on its first reading is carried. Proponent, proceed to the second reading.
Mr. Chair, I would like to be recognized.
Yes, you are recognized.
Mr. Chair, I have a motion to dispense the reading of this resolution and forward with the discussion and deliberation for the second reading.
Since there are two questions raised in that motion, the author should clarify which one.
Dispensing the reading of the resolution.
Thank you. There is a motion to dispense the reading proper of Resolution Number 7, Series of 2025 in its second reading. Is there any second? Motion has been seconded. Let's proceed to voting. Those who are in favor of the motion of dispensing the reading proper of the Resolution Number 7, Series of 2025 in its second reading, please say aye. Those who are against the motion, please say nay. The ayes have it. The motion to dispense the reading proper of GLC Resolution Number 7, Series of 2025 in its second reading is carried. Proponent? Proceeding, we have the discussions and debates on the resolution. Since the reading proper is suspended, we will proceed to that. The body is reminded of the House rules that has been approved last session, that a maximum of 3 speakers or 3 times from the proponents and 3 from the floor will be entertained, and that the speakers will be given 2 minutes each. So in total, we have 12 minutes for this debate, and I will be strict with the time. So good proponent, proceed.
Okay. I would like to recognize the General Assembly. If you have any question, you can proceed with the deliberation for this specific resolution. Yeah.
Ayan. Meron pala. So let me just open the file.
Please observe proper decorum.
Yan, I'm so sorry. So, I just want to express my reservations relative to this resolution. I have just read it last night. Now, I want to appraise the members of this august body that this resolution is great, substantive, and I want to give credit to the proponent for proposing this. However, when it comes to the provision, the term really is provision, because if we use procurement, that means we will undergo the process of purchasing. Procurement basically is to purchase. I think that there is a confusion as to that. That's why I want to clarify that. Because if you say that we will procure and then provide, that means we will purchase, and then after we purchase, we will give. But there's a distinct difference between providing and then, of course, when we provide, we will give to you the tents. I am very certain that all college student councils and all organizations here are aware as to the limitations of tents. And we have actually computed if you want us to procure, we have computed the needed amount in order for us to have, magkano nga yung kagabing kinompute natin, nakalimutan ko yung number, but 55. Yeah, pinakompute ko, kinompute ni ISL rather. And if nagre-range ang isang tent dahil sa mga bakal, i-open ko ang calculator ko ng 55,000.
The chairperson and student regent is reminded to seek permission when speaking in vernacular.
May I please speak in vernacular? Vernacular. I forgot the computation of ISL, but she computed it, and it resulted in 800,000 pesos if we are going to procure as to the number of needed tents. But unfortunately, we do not have that wide latitude or wide fiscal space. Now, I would just like to ask the proponent, I am sure you are aware on how tents are provided during events. As to the as to your computation, because you mentioned there that we will procure, that means we will purchase. So that's my first question.
Mr. Chair, I would like to be recognized.
Yes, you are recognized.
Can I just clarify if what whereas clause or further clause kung saan yung nakalagay na procurement process na yun to the resolution?
Let me. If walang procurement, or did I misread it? I think I did. Ayon. There is no mention of the term procurement as a word. But the USC, utilizing its operational budget, student government funds, allowable university subsidies which we are not receiving, which we do not have, by the way, except the Student Development Fund, shall ensure the adequate procurement and availability of tents for participating accredited UBOs. Ito pala siya. So, hindi ako nagkamali ng binasa. Section 3, under the first under the first operative clause.
Mr. Chair, I would like to be recognized.
Yes, you are recognized.
Okay. Based organization. The very idea of this resolution is an urging and of accountability resolution. What do we mean by that? It was actually, before I actually crafted this, I already had a conversation with different seniors that had already a passing of resolutions to the GLC. And it was actually very hard on my end, especially in terms of what could we possibly do to this resolution to actually providing intent, since we do not have the knowledge in terms of the accessibility of allocation of funding from the USC. But as you can see from earlier discussion, we had a adaptation of specific allocation of funding from a specific activity of university. Here you can see University Welcome Party, they had a total of 292,500 pesos just for welcome party events. So what in terms of this section, this specific USC obligation to provide this, the procurement has no longer the procurement has the jurisdiction of procurement is on the USC side, since this resolution is an urging or having the accountability for the USC to actually provide for all the accredited university-based organization. It's already under jurisdiction to what could they possibly do just to provide a tent for UBOs. Further explanation for this is that every welcome party, CSCs with no hate are already provided with tents, and that is no longer negotiable on USC's end. Because yeah, they are already part of the CSCs, for example. But in terms of the UBOs, the tent is only for the a specific amount of capacity. For example, there are only a top 10 or top 20. From this specific administration, we had a top 20 UBO to be provided with tents, and hati-hati pa sila doon. For specific, that will be a total of 40 accredited org, but not all was actually provided on that specific tent. But now, on the other administration, which is from Buaiza, we had a kind of mechanism that kung sino yung unang vernacular language, Mr. Speaker and Mr. Chair, that we had a mechanism that only those top 20 accredited organization will be provided by tents. As you can see, this kind of mechanism is a systematic problem already. But if with this resolution to be actually actualized in the executory clauses, DUB also will no longer be wala na silang problema in terms of securing tents at the end of the day, every welcome party, because as you can see in the whereas clauses, I already provided what the importance of welcome party for every university-based organization. This is the starting point for every university-based organization to actualize a funding, internal funding, separated pa doon yung membership fee. But in terms of the technicalities of this resolution, for example, specifically the Section 3 with the procurement processes of the USC, it's on your jurisdiction.
The good
what could
author
happen.
is reminded to wrap up his response since the limited time.
Yeah. Last word, that the USC has the jurisdiction in terms of what could they possibly happen or what they could do in just to provide these tents. It's their accountability at the end of the day. Yeah, thank you.
All right, I understand the point. In the same vein, I would also like to add to that. Since the activities have been mentioned, and I would like to, of course, inform the body that the USC has done its best to give everyone tents during the welcome party. But due to the series of reschedulings, actually, nung unang day, we had complete tents. But when it was rescheduled and then again rescheduled, of course, tents were pulled out, hence the limitations. So I would just like to inform everyone of that particular situation. Now, relative to that, I believe that it is already a practice, an inherent practice, that when there is an activity, for example, such as that of the university welcome party, when the USC says that we will give tents, we will give tents. When we will provide, we will provide. Now, this may cause, in my view, a conflict. Because what if there is, for example, an event not organized by the USC, yet we will be asked to provide? Right? So I think there's quite a conflict on that, because if we are to organize activities and say that we will provide tents, we will exert all reasonable efforts indeed to provide tents. That's on the part of the USC. And we must also understand, ladies and gentlemen, the logistical barriers that beset each organization in terms of borrowing tents from certain government offices. That is a shared reality, and I am sure that has been experienced by almost college student councils. Because if we can provide each and every organization tents, we will provide. But you also have to understand, and the students also have to bear with us, that there are certain limitations that are just way beyond the control of the council. That even if we prepare 3 months before the event, when time comes, classes are suspended, we have to reschedule, tents are pulled out, then we will have to re-borrow and then resend letters, and then they will have to re-deliver, and we will have to redo everything. Then that becomes a barrier, an unprecedented one that is beyond our